Good morning, everybody. I'm Richie Scholl from Worthington Distribution. Welcome to our webinar this morning. Thanks for joining. We have quite a big number of attendees. We appreciate everybody taking the time to join us. We'll do our best to get through this in a timely manner and answer all of your questions. So this morning, you've got myself. I'll take you through kind of an intro and where the current standing is with the Omni system. Barry's with us. He's going to take you through the ELK system. Then we'll jump back. I'll take you through a Fabaro system, and Steve is going to go through an Alula system with you at the end. So what we want to start with is kind of an overview of where the Omni system stands, where it's going, kind of how we got here, and we'll sort of go through that from there. A couple other notes before we really get started. When we jump over to the ELK section that we want to show you some things on that Barry's going to run, we've also got Nate Carr from ELK who's on as an attendee. So he'll be able to answer some questions for us. So special thanks to Nate for joining us and spending time with us today. In regard to how the Q&A will work today, what we'd like to do is, if you have any questions, either as you go or at the very end, feel free to go ahead and type those in the chat part of your screen, which is at the lower right. There's three of us in here, so one of us is constantly watching the chat, and we'll do our best to get back to you right away with those questions. Two quick notes on that. If the chat gets so busy that we're not keeping up, number one, or number two, if we get to the end of the webinar and we're just really running short on time and we've got to end, if your question did not get answered during the webinar, we are going to download the chat transcript at the end. We can see who typed what, and we'll make sure that we get back to you, if not by the end of the day today, midday tomorrow, with those answers to any questions you may have. So we're going to keep an eye on that. So I'd like to cover a quick outline with you. We're going to first start off with what's the current availability of system parts for the Omni, what's been discontinued. We'll take a minute and talk about what are suitable replacements for the devices that are part of Omni that have been discontinued. And then longer term, what's the path forward? What are some suggestions that we have as far as where we think you might want to look? And then we're going to overview 3 different systems, as I mentioned, that we think might be some pretty solid choices for you going down the road here. So how did we get here? Well, Worthington started selling Omni systems in 1998. We were the second distributor for it. It's been a huge part of our business, and we know it's an important part of yours, and that's why we're trying to spend this time with you today and get you the pertinent information to help you kind of make your decisions on how you want to move forward from here. As I said, it's an important system to us. We feel strongly about it. It's installed here in our office. All 3 of us that are presenting to you today either have it in our home or have had it in our home at one point, and we've sold thousands of these over the years. So I just can't stress enough that we understand how important it is to you, because it's equally as important to us. And the quick note is, as you guys probably know already, the Omni system is really a security system at heart, but it does a lot more than that. And I make a point to mention that because as we recommend some options to you for where you go from here, we keep that in mind and try to keep coming back to that so you know kind of where we are and why we recommend those other products. So the current status. As of today, at this moment, the system is not discontinued. There's been no official notice, and there's not been an official word that the Omni panel or this Omni series has been discontinued. So that's one thing to note. Where we do stand is that there are some certain products that over the past few months and weeks have been discontinued, and that's what kind of causes us to come up here to you today and say, let's kind of look at where things stand and kind of assess the situation and figure out where we want to go. Specifically, the things that are discontinued that are no longer available include the OmniTouch 7 in white, includes the console flush mount kit, the HLC lighting system pretty much in its entirety, and the wireless Omni wireless security sensors, again, pretty much in its entirety. So what are some replacement suggestions? Well, the first one that came up was the OmniTouch 7 in white. The OmniTouch 7 in black is still in good stock status. That's not a problem. And then the other way that we see folks going with that is with some, with some either alternative touchscreens, like maybe an Android touchscreen that you can put on the wall. We've got a couple solutions for that. You can run the SnapLink mobile app on it, or you could run Bitwise on it and do some custom interfaces. And alternatively, we see a lot of folks using iPad mounts. Real quick note on that, what you see up on your screen are three different iPad mounts from iPort. First one is LaunchPort. That's the one that you may have used. It's been around the longest. It's the plastic sleeve that goes around the iPad, and then it can be mounted on either a desktop stand or on a wall mount, and it's either portrait or landscape. It's magnetic. It holds it to the mount, and it's inductive charging. The next one is LuxPort, which is kind of a new and updated version of that LaunchPort. LuxPort is one where it's available in either black, white, or like a brushed aluminum kind of finish. It's pretty similar to launch port with two key differences. Three key differences really. The first is it's like I said, it's a brushed aluminum extruded piece, so it's a little more modern looking, a little bit thinner and a little bit trimmer profile. Number one. Number two, the wall mount is not inductive charging. There's actually pins in it. And number three is it's not magnetic mount, so it actually snaps onto the wall. And the thing with the launch port is you could rotate it between portrait and landscape. And we found over time that the little pins in there that would keep it locked into portrait or landscape would kind of wear down, and it got hard to keep it level. So in response to that, they came out with the Lux port, which is either put it on in landscape or take it off the wall and put it on in portrait, so it stays right where you want it. And then finally, there's the surface mount, which is a really neat product, which is not one that you can move on and off the wall. Once it's on the wall, on the surface mount, it stays there. That's a permanent mount. Replacement suggestions for the console flush mount kit. This is one where honestly, there really isn't one. There's no other alternative to flush mount that console. We know that was a really popular part. What we can say as far as some suggestions for that go is that the trend, even prior to the discontinuation of that flush mount kit, has been to use less and less of these traditional consoles and lean more and more towards either touchscreens, iPads, or like a smartphone type device. People kind of have gravitated toward that anyway. Really quick though, we would suggest that no matter what, you always want to put a console on the system somewhere. Put it down in the utility area where the panel's mounted. Maybe stick it in like a basement stairwell or a pantry, somewhere where it's there for two reasons. Number one, you need it to get some initial setup done, like the IP address and encryption keys for the system. It's also the best way to set the time on the system if needed. And then also, we like to have a hardwired console on the panel somewhere because it's battery backed by the system. So in the event that the power is out and no other interface that you have will disarm the system, you can at least disarm from a console somewhere. Lighting, we've got a couple suggestions there. So the HLC lighting is discontinued at this point. We have three that we would recommend. The Lutron Radio Rod 2 is always a good suggestion, and that's for a couple reasons. Number one is really the reliability of that system. We have super good luck with that. We do not have tech support calls on it. It's a system that scales very well, and it's just bulletproof. So we really like to recommend that one. You can get certified online for the installation of that one. We can guide you through that process. And then it also gives you the ability to add window treatments. For those of you who have not gotten involved in window treatments in any extent with Omni or with any of your other jobs that you may do, window treatments are fantastic business. They're really not complicated to put in. Lutron makes it super easy to pick out the right treatment, the right fabric. Go online and get pricing so you can quote your customer right away when you're there to measure the shades. So if it's anything that you've been maybe a little concerned about getting into, we'd love to have a chat with you at some point and kind of help you put those fears at ease, because it really is pretty straightforward. It's great business. In addition, Leviton's got the Z-Wave that's through the VRCOP, and there's a Zigbee option available as well, which would be through the ZIM. Keep in mind that the Zigbee pathway would not have any scene controllers for you. That's just not a part of that system. As far as the Omni wireless goes, our suggestion would be, if you want to continue to use the Omni or you have some jobs out there where it's bid already, go ahead and use the GE receiver for Omni. That's still available. And then the Alula GE frequency sensors. We've actually had a lot of dealers that have done this over the past couple years anyway, and it's just a really good option. The Alula sensors are nice because some of them are a little trimmer, a little smaller in size, fantastic battery life, and great wireless range also. So that's a pretty good option for you as well. So the last thing I've got for you is, what is the path forward? There's four main options as we see it. Number one is, as long as parts are available, nothing wrong with going ahead to continue using the Omni system in that near term. If you got a system bid out, you may want to just leave it in that project, especially if it's pretty near term, the next couple weeks to the next couple months. Longer than that, you may want to look at something else. One thing I'd like to take the time to point out at this point is that we do know that Leviton is committed to supporting these systems for the long term. So whether that is with a repair or the tech support issue, and Worthington is as well. So anything we can do to help you with these, either now or down the road, we of course will, and Leviton will too. And to that end, I would say there's really no need to be concerned about using the panel as long as it's available. Option number two, and that's the one that Barry's going to talk to you about in a couple minutes here, is the ELK M1. That's going to be your closest option of all the things that we see out there in the marketplace. It'll be your closest to the Omni. What I mean by that is, it's a security system at its core. It's got very robust security features, yet it also has really robust lighting features and automation features and thermostats, all the other things that we've become used to. They've got really nice support for a variety of lighting systems, including Lutron, but not just Radio RA2. It also does RA2 Select. It does Caseta. So we've got some really nice options there. The M1 is a very modular system, so very similar to Omni in functionality, but what's different is, when you need additional serial ports, that's another piece that you get and hang on the bus. All those kind of things are kind of out there. So the M1, like I said, will be your closest choice to the Omni, and you'll see that in a minute. Number 3 would be Fabaro. That's a Z-Wave based system. One thing there that's a little bit different is it'll allow the end user to set up rules and maybe some scenes. It's got a really nice, rich user interface, meaning the app and some of the ways that people interact with the system. So we'll go through that. And then finally, number 4 that we're going to take you through will be the Arula system, which is a wireless security panel at its heart. It's also got some options for hardwired. It'll do Z-Wave for locks, lights, stats. Keep in mind with Alula, there will always be some monthly fees with that. Even if you don't have it monitored, there are monthly fees involved, service fees involved for getting that panel to have the interactive services so that you can use the app and all the other interactive things that come with it. Some of you, I know a lot of our dealers use the Omni as a security system for the specific reason that you can do it and not charge monthly fees and have that system to send you alerts when there's a breach of the system. So we know this would be a little bit different. Elk will still be an option for you for that. So there's still lots of ways to do that. We just wanted to say if you do feel that you want to get into the RMR space, Alula will be probably a pretty good way to do it. So with that, we're going to show you a quick video from Elk that they put together, which is really nice. We're going to switch the mic over to Barry, and we'll get you guys going on Elk here.
Hi, I'm Katie, Sales and Customer Service Manager at Elk Products. I would like to thank you for attending today, and I would also like to thank Worthington for offering this informational webinar. Let's take a few minutes to understand how Elk's M1 security and automation platform is a great option for those looking to transition from the Omni system.
For over 25 years, Elk Products has provided innovative and reliable solutions for security and automation professionals. Elk's M1 system offered the ideal combination of security, energy management, and integrated control. At its core, M1 is a rock-solid, robust security and life safety panel. Using an integration-friendly approach, M1 builds on this platform with full-featured automation capability to enhance safety, comfort, and convenience. The Internet of Things changed our lives. With all of its conveniences come increased risks. Connected homes and businesses need smart control solutions focused on security. M1 Controls features superior encryption and multi-level authentication for remote access. An advanced microprocessor offers increased speed, capabilities, and immunity to hacking. M1 is very scalable and flexible, making it great for most any residential or commercial application. It features large zone capacity, supporting both hardwired and wireless sensors. M1 also expands to support a large number of devices through outputs and integration modules, providing intelligent control and automation of lights, thermostats, garage doors, gates, fans, irrigation, water valves, and much more. Elk offers a wide variety of wireless sensors for the M1. Our 319 series is a dependable and economical option for many installations. When increased security is a must, Elk's premium two-way wireless features encrypted two-way communication with signal acknowledgement and increased immunity to hacking. Two-way wireless sensors also incorporate installer-friendly features to save installation time and steps. M1 integrates with a variety of industry partner manufacturers. This empowers you to work with the products you prefer or your customer requests. You can meet the needs of your customers who are budget conscious and those who want high-end options. View a full list of M1 integration partners at elkproducts.com/partners. Elk RP2 was designed with the installer in mind. This easy and powerful programming contains simple drop-downs, checkboxes, and text fields. Even macros or rules are created the same way to build logic statements in plain English, providing a platform for powerful and imaginative system configuration. Conflict resolution offers easy synchronization of M1 system programming, and rules can quickly be enabled or disabled. The Elk M1 Gold currently holds the following listings, certifications, and approvals.
We think you'll agree M1 is a great fit for those transitioning from the Omni panel. We also think you'll love doing business with Elk. We offer super solid products with great warranties. We're here to help with an award-winning support team with friendly attitudes and extensive product knowledge to help you get the most from your system. Should you ever have a problem with a product, Elk will work directly with professional installers to ensure quick resolution for your product returns. Thank you for your time.
Hey guys, Barry Himpy. Going to go over the Elk system with you here, the M1. It's a security system at its core, as Richie's mentioned, and an automation panel, so we can do lighting and locks and thermostats. We can do, shade control. And we'll go through some of that in the slides here. Very flexible system. As Richie said, modular. So you start out with your base system and then add the number of serial ports you need. You don't have any extras. So you're not paying for ones that you're never going to use. So we'll just go through this real quick. So as Elk stated and as we've stated, it's mainly focused on security. So it is a security panel first, and then automation next. So it's good for businesses, residences, and commercial homes. Anywhere, schools, gyms, insurance buildings, all kinds of installations. So the M1 is not only a security panel itself, but it's also a secure system. So they use bank level encryption. You have wireless security sensors that are encrypted. You have a 32-bit processor, so it's a fast processor. Things happen very quickly when triggers for your rules occur. And then their protocol. So a couple of different options for security monitoring. You have the C1 M1 dual path communicator, so it's going to do cellular and it's going to do IP. So you don't have to worry about any kind of phone line issues, whether your customer has a phone line or doesn't have a phone line. Whether they have voice over IP. Voice over IP settings vary from ISP to ISP, so you never knew exactly what you would have to set it for to get it to work properly. The cellular option is going to, and the IP option is going to eliminate that. Connects directly to the panel, so that all the information is available, and you don't need to jump around the cloud just to send it. It's direct connection. Obviously, that's going to be able to see through that. So with the C1M1, there is the ElkLink Mobile. That's a free app for arming and disarming and viewing your status. You also can get emails and texts through the C1M1 of events or arming and disarming. And you can also integrate with some of their third parties through the C1M1. The XCP is the other option you would use instead of the C1M1 if you just want to do IP reporting. It's also what you would use for your programming, as well as the integration with, say, the Leviton integration and some of the other third-party integration. It does time sync, and it also is what sends your notifications in your emails and texts. Here's a couple of the options that you have for remote control of the system. So again, the ElkLink Mobile, which I mentioned, works with the C1M1. We have M1 to go, which we'll show you here in a second. eKeyPad M1 and eKeyPad Pro, which are for iOS, and then the M1 Touch Pro, which is for Android. So I'm going to jump in here to the M1 to go real quick to show you guys. All right, so as you can see, this is a PC-based interface. Gives you your customer control of the system. We have our security. We can arm and disarm. We can see our our log. We can turn the chimes on and off. We have our F keys, which we can use to trigger automation tasks, which are equivalent to the Omni buttons, which is going to trigger your rules. We can see our zone status. If we go back, we can see our automation tasks again, which is our buttons. We can launch the rules. We have our lighting. We can control. Right now, we're connected to a Leviton Omni system using the XCP and the RS-232 bridge. We have thermostats. We're talking to the April Air thermostats here, but the ELK supports the Leviton thermostats as well as Omni thermostats. And then we can turn our outputs on and off. So it's just basically a nice way for your customer to quickly control the system. I'm going to jump over to the keypad so you can see that now. All right, so as you can see, we have a keypad, so we can use that to arm and disarm just like we did before. We can turn our chime on and off. We can bypass our zones. And we have favorites, so we can do, zone status. We can turn our lights on and off. And set the levels. We have all of our temperatures. We have the 2 April Air thermostats, and then the KP1 keypad, which we'll get a little bit on later, also has a temperature sensor in it. So you can have keypad there, and then we can launch different tasks. So this is the iOS interface. There's also one, like I said, I mentioned for Android. Oh, all right, we'll jump back into the presentation here. Okay, so some of the touchscreen options we have here. Well, keypad options. The first one is the Navigator touchscreen, which we're going to zoom in on here. The 3.5-inch touchscreen gives you all of your arming and disarming. It gives you your F keys. If we go into the menu here, we can do our automation tasks. We can see our log. We can see our zone status. Turn our lights on and off. We can launch the tasks. We can see our thermostats. So it's a nice little surface-mounted touchscreen option. Connects right to the keypad bus. If you're using existing wiring, you can easily replace that. So the next thing, that's available in white, silver, and black faceplates. And you can also customize some of the options on it. There's a few other keypads we're going to go through here. So we have the KP1, which is this one down here. This has the door, has all of your options here, has your 4 F keys as well as 2 F keys here. And it has the temp sensor in it so that we can get the temperature of the room that the keypad is in. You can use those for rules and things like that. You have the KP3 over here, which is a surface mount keypad. Just another option. Everybody, that one has 4 F keys. We have an arming station here, which is really nice. You can put it in an area we don't really need a full keypad, but you want some way to arm and disarm the system. It's in a decorator style opening. You can put it next to next to switches and things like that. And then the last one I saved here was actually the KP2. This is going to be your closest keypad to the Omni keypad. It's recessed mounted. It has your 4F keys. You can launch all of your tools and tasks and controls from there as well. So we can go ahead and turn our lights on and off from here. Pretty easy. It has, like I said, the F keys, but these F keys also can be illuminated to show whether a zone is violated or things like that. Right now I have it set as the garage door, so when the garage door is closed, the light's on. But when I open the garage door, the light goes out. So that way I know when I'm looking at the keypad whether I left my garage door open or something like that. That's a very nice feature. You can go ahead and turn the chimes on and off right from here, and you have all your different arming modes as well. The Elk has a voice board built into it. So one of the nice things about this back box is there's a spot in the back to be able to put a speaker. So you can do your voice enunciation and everything and have it come right out from behind the keypad. All right, so again, I mentioned the voice alerts. You can have voice alerts for arming and disarming. You can have custom voice alerts. You can have zone violation alerts. There's all kinds of different things. Have a voice alert for if there's a leak detected or something like that. You could even have, like I said, you can have custom ones that will launch on the rules. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it. Access control. So access control is something that Elk does. It's not a full-blown system like you see with a regular access system, but a lot of guys are using Omni systems for access control. So one of the nice things about the Elk is we have that option to keep going with that. We have 199 users, which is about double what you would get in Omni Pro 2. You have 16 doors that you can do, and then there's a 512 event log, so that way you can see who came and go, and that can be downloaded off the panel, so that way once you get to the capacity, it goes back to the top. It doesn't overwrite everything. You at least have a copy of it. So each keypad, not each, but specifically the KP2 and the KP1 have the ability to do access control readers. So we have a tag here. We can do arming and disarming. So anywhere there's a keypad, you can either have the internal reader or you can hook up an external reader to it. As well as that, if you don't want to have a keypad there, but also have access control, they have an access control module that acts just like a keypad. It counts as one of your 16 keypads and one of your 16 doors. So you can have a pretty robust access control system. So there's a lot of upsell opportunities everywhere, but I mean, they all gives you great ones. If the customer's already wired, that's fine. You can use their wired sensors. But a lot of systems nowadays are wireless. And one of the things that's nice about the Elk wireless is it's two-way. You get status feedback. On the key fob itself, there's an information button you can hold down. If the system is disarmed, it lights up green. If it's armed, it lights up red. If the system was violated while you're not home and you hit that button, it'll actually blink red to show you that something has happened. And maybe you want to have the police called, or have somebody, for females at least, have somebody come with you to make sure that the house is clear before you go in it. So again, I mentioned earlier, it's encrypted. It does have jamming prevention in there. Some of the very cool, unique features that the Elk Wireless has is the smokes. The wireless smokes are interconnected. So if one goes off, they all go off. You don't have that in any other wireless smoke. And the motion detectors have a bright white LED. So if you have a combination of motions and smokes in the same install, when the smokes trip, the light on the LED on the motion is going to flash, so you can see kind of a pathway. That light can also be turned on and off for a brief period of time using outputs in the system. So it's very nice. They do have one-way wireless, which we don't really go into here. They just came out with. So those are going to be the 319 megahertz sensors. They are going to add more of those as time goes on. Some of the other sensors that they have available, you have your slimline door windows, you have your mini door windows, You have a recessed door window. You have a universal 3-zone. So that's going to be so that you can tie wired sensors in to a wired system without having the wires go all the way back. The glass break sensor, the key fob I mentioned. You also have a panic button. You have the motion sensor with LED, but you also have a pet immune version of it. Then there's also a all environment, they call it, motion sensor. You have a CO sensor, and you have the interconnected smoke. So regular wireless versus two-way wireless. You're going to have, when you're doing your walkthrough tests or your walk tests on a typical wireless system, you're going to have somebody at the keypad pushing buttons and somebody tripping the sensors and things like that. With the two-way feedback on the ELK system, you can do one person can test everything, and you'll see the feedback as to whether it's actually showing up on the system and working properly. So similar to the Omni, the ELK integrates with a lot of different things. You have lighting, you have locks, you have thermostats, you have shades, there's contactors for large electrical loads. Some of the lighting systems, as we mentioned, Leviton Radio Rot 2, it'll also do UPB, it'll do Z-Wave, it'll do Radio Rot 2 Select, it'll do Caseta, and a whole bunch of others. Z-Wave locks. On the thermostat side, you have, again, the April Air, you have the Leviton thermostats, and you have the Omni thermostats. So again, here's just a brief kind of thing of list of devices that have to be integrated. We covered most of that. Sprinklers, water shut-off valves for when you're doing your leak detection. Some different residential applications. Commercial applications. Very, very flexible system. So some of the features. You can have 144 wireless zones, 208 total zones, you have a large number of outputs. You have 199 users, 16 keypads, 8 areas or partitions, which is going to put you on the equivalent of the Pro 2. Built-in astronomical clock, so for your rules and things, you can do your timing functions. So some of the most common things you add on to just being, instead of just being a security system, say a water, like I said, I mentioned leak detection. You have leak detection, leak sensors, and then you have your shutoff valve, so that when a leak is detected, you can send a notification through your XCP, do a voice announcement, and then shut off the valve. Or if the system's monitored, obviously that zone would be violated and it would be reported. Water heater, turning it on and off when it's not used. Some people like to turn their electric water heaters off when they're away for the weekend. Some people even like to turn them off overnight, so that with the large load contactor that plugs into an appliance module, can be used pretty much with any automated technology, using a plug-in module or a controlled receptacle. Temperature sensor. So again, similar to an Omni where you wanted to do outdoor temperature or remote temperature, you have the temperature sensors that you can place inside or outside. And then you also have one with a probe on it, so that if you had to monitor the temperature, say in a freezer or something like that, the unit itself can stay outside of the cold temperature. So programming. Programming is done with the RP2 software. It's going to be very, very similar, or be the closest thing to the Omni programming that you're going to see. English text, checkboxes, drop downs, everything's kind of laid out in sections. And then also your globals, as far as entry, exit times, and things like that, are all going to be in one location, easy to find. So, easy English programming, like I said, as I mentioned, typing a name, checking a box, and selecting from a drop-down. That's pretty much how everything is programmed. One of the nice features with the ELK is that when you are doing a change to the system, you can just send that one change. You don't have to send everything. So it makes making a change to the system very quick. The system will also give you a notification if something software will give you a notification if something in the system is different versus what's in your software. So you'll see that this hasn't been downloaded to the panel or this hasn't been saved to your file. You get a nice visual on that. So there's a kind of a look at the way a zone would be set up. Use your voice descriptions. Is it bypassable? Is it force armable? So if you it's not ready when you want to go into exit mode, you can still go into exit mode and then it'll arm when it becomes ready. Here's one of the keypad setup screens. So you're going to kind of see your options there, as well as the F keys that I mentioned. You can set what makes the LED light up and what the button press does. So rules. The rules are almost identical to what you're used to with an Omni. You have a whenever, which is going to be your when in an Omni. That's going to be your trigger. So whenever the security is disarmed, whenever the zone is violated, whenever the temperature is this. And then you're going to have your and, which is your conditional. So whenever the front door is open and if it's dark, then turn on the light, things like that. And then your then is your action, what you want it to do. So whenever, again, is going to be a time change, a zone change, arming and disarm state. If a rule was triggered, if a task was triggered, if a temperature reaches a certain point. So your and, again, is your traditionals, and if it's a certain time, and if it's light or dark, and if it's triggered. So again, very, very, it's going to feel very familiar to the guys who are used to the Omni. And then your then allows, you can have multiple ands, you can have multiple thens. As far as the number of rules, you don't get a specific number of rules, you get a percentage of rules available, and you'll see that in the software. The more that you have, the higher the number, obviously, but there's no set specific number. The more complex they are, the more space they're going to take. So this is kind of a building a system slide, and we can make these available. It's kind of what systems are available, what keypads are available, what wireless is available, and so on. To kind of give you quick answers to what's available where. So, and then questions. We can go ahead, and if anybody has any questions, you want to type them in the chat. I know I saw we've had some coming in as we've gone through. But if you have anything that you want to specifically ask, now's the time. Firmware updates are done through the RP software. It'll give you all a list of devices that are on your bus. You can check all the current firmware versions and then update them as well after you download them from the Elk site. One of the things that I didn't mention that I want to mention, one of the pieces that's available for the Elk panel is this Data Bus Hub retrofit. So this is what you're going to use if you were transitioning, if you had an existing system that was home run, you would need to use this piece because the way the Elk keypads are wired in a new install are all daisy chained. You go from one keypad to the next, to the next, to the next back. When you don't have that set up as a daisy chain, you would have this retrofit hub, which would create that daisy chain through your home run wiring. So one thing to watch out, if the house has already been pre-wired, home run, you definitely want to make sure you add that. Yeah, the M1 will work with HLC because HLC is UPB at its core. It doesn't have the auto setup function that you would have in an Omni panel, but using the Upstart software, you can configure everything to work. There are hardwire loops on the system, so you both you can do hardwire 2 and 4 wire systems. Yes. So the keypads itself don't actually connect to the audio. The audio is run back to the main panel. That's where the audio output is. It'd be similar to the way an Omni is. You have your voice board, but the voice board is on the main panel. So you have your keypad wiring, and then you have your additional 4 wires for your speaker and mic. The total number of zones is 208, whether it's wired or a combination of wireless and wired. I think Nate's going to have to answer that one, yeah. One zone for 2 wire loops. You can just do 1 loop. So how does M1 pricing compare to an Omni? So you're going to see, as we said, it's very modular system. Whereas you have a price for an Omni Pro 2, you're going to have, say up here, an M1, you're going to start down here and then work up towards what you need. So if your base system, then you add your Ethernet expander, then your serial expander for your thermostats and serial for your light, and then go from there. So you're going to see a set price for an Omni panel and then a modular price. So depending on what features you're using, you may end up at the same price or you may end up cheaper. The processor that's in the Elk is, I would say, probably at least twice as fast as the Omni, if not 4 times as fast as what was in the Omni. So you're going to see a very quick response in your triggers. The Telguard, if you're using the C1M1, it does go through Telguard, but you can use other cellular modules, the Lula ones, for example, and you would go through the IP data tel if you're already set up with them. If you're already set up with Uplink, you can use theirs. It's the C1M1 offers you that extra, app as well. So it's very similar to the way that the Omni functionality is. Okay, so the way that the Rust sound works with an Elk is very similar to the way that Omni works with an Elk. You have serial connection to the panel, and you can do your volume up and down, your mute, your source selection, your zones on and off. Again, that's where it stands right now. We didn't set up any port forwarding to do this app control. But again, if you use a DNS, because we're on the same network, obviously it's going to be relatively easy. But it's the same thing you would do with an Omni, where you're going to do your DYN DNS or your no IP, or if you have a static IP. So you would have to do port forwarding. Okay. So we're going to switch over to the next presentation, and then we'll answer the questions in the chat.
Okay, guys, thanks for bearing with us. We're going to get over to the Fabaro part now. This is a much quicker section. We just want to give you an overview on this system and how we think it fits into the whole mix here. Really quick, if we can do another audio check, if you can hear me all right, please just give me another chat there. We'll make sure we're good. And one last thing I wanted to point out, too, that maybe I should have mentioned in the beginning. Thanks for the audio check. Got you there. In our opinion, we're not going to sit here and say that we think you should choose one of these three systems or one of any system out there for that matter as kind of what you want to go forward down this path on. Our recommendation would kind of be, maybe get familiar with a few different systems, and you might find that one's a good fit for one application and a different might be a better fit for a different application. Totally understood that means you've got to learn a couple more systems and become experts on more things, and that certainly can be a challenge. But we just find that you're going to see some radical differences in the way that some of these systems approach different things, and it may be helpful to know a couple of them. All right, so really quick, what we're going to talk about specific to Fabaro. Who is Fabaro? Where do they come from? How do they fit in here? We're going to talk about the Home Center Z-Wave capabilities, specifically lighting, sensors, thermostats, locks, and then user interfaces. We'll talk about a couple of plugins specifically. We'll talk about what the plugins are, and then there's two, the Rusline and the Intercom, that we want to kind of give you a little more detail on. We'll talk about how the user gets notifications out of the Fabaro system. We'll talk about geofencing, remote gateways, which is how you connect multiple systems together to make one big system. We'll talk about AV control through Harmony remotes, and then we're also going to give you a demo of the system. So who's Fabaro? They're founded around 2010 in Poland. Began selling in the US in 2013. And they started making the micro switches and dimmers. Really quick, for somebody that doesn't have experience with those, in Europe, it's very popular in the Z-Wave community to take out the current non-automated switch out of the wall, put this little micro switch or micro dimmer behind it, and then put it back. It's not a really popular layout here in North America. I think the reason it's more popular there is because they have many different form factors of switches, and it's kind of hard to make these Z-Wave enabled switches that fit all those different back boxes. One reason it's not so popular here, it's a little bit of a weird thing. The micro module has the ultimate control of the lighting load, so you get a weird thing where maybe you turn it on manually So the switch is in the on position, but then you turn it off for Z-Wave. Now the light is really off, but the switch is in the on position. So people get a little confused by it. So we don't see it too much here, but that's kind of how they got started. And then they kind of got into more of a full line. So we have gateways and hubs now. We've got inputs and outputs, all sorts of devices, which we'll take you through in more specific. Again, with Fabaro, what you're going to notice, and I'll take you through how it applies here, is this is a very modern approach to automation, very modern approach to this sort of a system. Because they come from Europe and the way that design is done in Europe that we don't necessarily have, we have not fully embraced here, although I think that's kind of a trend that's changing. You know, in Europe, you're not going to see light switches all over the walls and touchscreens all over the walls. It's more of a minimalistic approach. So Fabaro's devices are kind of meant to speak to that approach of design. So you're going to see not so much of touchscreens and iPads all over the place, although you can do that. You'll see more of more passive and more kind of discrete devices that let the user interact with the system. So the first thing, we've got two hubs in this system. There's the Home Center 2 and the Home Center Lite. For smaller jobs, you could use the Home Center Lite. Larger jobs, you want the Home Center 2. For really big jobs, you'd use one of the Home Center 2s and one or more of the Home Center Lites, and we'll talk more about that in a few slides. So just really quick to break down the differences, both have what we call a graphical scene editor, and that means you can create scenes and rules using like a block system. So you say, you know, if this happens, then do this, and it's graphical. It's what we're used to. Nice thing there is it's also able for it's also available for the end user to add rules and scenes. So so that's kind of in there. The next one down is the Lua Advanced Programming. That is available on Home Center 2, is not available on Home Center Lite. Really quick, what Lua is it's a coding language, not too unlike C or C++. So in that case, you can actually code your rules and your scenes. There are two camps on that. There's the one camp that says, you know, I understand Lua or I understand coding, so I can make rules and scenes way quicker by typing out those commands versus going through the steps of dragging the blocks together and putting these rules together. The other camp is I'm an integrator, I do all this stuff, but I'm not a coder, and that's fine. You can use either. In fact, in the Home Center 2, you can actually start a scene or a rule out in the graphical mode, then hit a button and switch it to the Lua mode to see this code that works in the background and tweak it that way if you wanted to. Last thing on the Lua code is that there are a handful of things that you can only do through the Lua code. One specific example is we have really cool rust sound integration with the Fabaro system, and we can use a swipe controller, which I'll show you in a bit. You swipe your hand in front of it in the up direction, and it would turn the volume up, and swipe it down, and it would turn the volume down. That's one thing you would need the Lua code for. It's just not available in the graphical box. But it's one where we got a document on that. We can send it to you, pretty much copy and paste the code in, and it's very quick and easy. Voice control, that's kind of a legacy thing that's left over on this slide. Fabaro had their own voice control assistant built into the app, but with the advent of Alexa and of Google Home, they've kind of foregone that now and say just stick with Alexa and Google, and yes, integration is there and works really, really well. SIP voice server, only available on the Home Center 2, the larger one. On that one, we do have the ability to actually add IP extensions, whether they're hard extensions, door stations, a different Fabaro app on your smartphone. You can actually use the system as an intercom. Some really cool features and functionality there too. Plugin support. Plugins on the Fabaro system as we stand right now are all made by Fabaro. They are written and maintained by Fabaro, and these are things that let you integrate with other systems than just Z-Wave devices. So for example, Spico cameras, Rust sound systems, you'll see like Integra audio systems in there, certain smart TVs in there, and it lets you communicate with these devices directly and typically over IP right from the Home Center 2. So the Home Center 2, we support all of those plugins. On the Home Center Lite, it's a slower processor, a little bit lighter device, also a much less expensive device. So it's limited in how many of those plugins it can support and which ones it can. Primary example there would be the Rust Sound plugin. Will not run on the Home Center Lite. You've got to run that on the Home Center 2. So that's a big differentiator for us right there. Difference in processors you can see built in Z-Wave. Absolutely, we have it on both of them. One thing you'll notice on both the Home Center 2 and the Home Center Lite is this external antenna. Really quick note there is we find that the devices that have this external antenna have noticeably better range, a little bit better Z-Wave support, so it's nice to have that on there. The case on the Home Center 2 is an aluminum case, and it's plastic on the Home Center Lite. The reason I like to bring that up is when we first started dealing with the Home Center 2 a few years ago, the first couple customers, dealers that got them, actually kind of commented back to us and said, that thing gets it's pretty warm. It's noticeably warm when you touch it. Reason for that is that's really a mini computer in there. There's an actual Intel processor inside of it, and the aluminum case is the heat sink for the processor. There's no fan on it. It's completely silent, so the case is meant to be the heat sink, and it's meant to get a little bit warm. So just to mention that in case you notice it. And the last thing is sold at retail. Couple notes on this. So the first thing is the Home Center 2, the larger one, is not available at retail. So you won't be competing with that on Amazon or anywhere else. Other devices like the Home Center Lite and some of the other devices that will show you the Z-Wave accessories are available at retail. But Fabaro has a pretty strong policy so that you'll see those devices only at retail price. And again, there's a pretty nice spread in margin between dealer and retail price. So yeah, they'll be out there, but they're not going to embarrass you. They're not going to be available cheaper online than you get them for through distribution. Okay, let's talk some about the sensors. The first one is the door window sensor 2. It's the first thing on your screen, and it's this device here on my display. That is a Z-Wave door window sensor, not unlike ones you've seen before. The one really cool thing with this one is it's a relatively new model, replaced an older model. It's smaller, and it's got a built-in temp sensor. And we'll talk in a minute about why the built-in temp sensors are so important. Next device is the motion sensor. That's this one right here. It's a lot more than just a motion. It also has temperature, humidity, light level, and shock. So not just motion as in like a PIR motion, but also if it's shaken, it'll sense that. And then we have the flood sensor, which is this device here, which is kind of self-explanatory, except it does a couple different things. We've got 3 brass prongs on the bottom, and if they detect water, just even a slight amount of water, you're going to get a signal that there's a leak, and you can act on that, whether you alert somebody through an email or a push notification or through lights or however you want to do it. That's available. Next thing is there's actually an accelerometer in this device. So if there's so much water that it floats, you're going to get a different notification that says, hey, we've got a flood now, right? That's different than just a leak. Also, if somebody picks it up and moves it, you will detect that, and we can set up a notification to tell somebody that the sensor has been moved. You might want to check that out. And then finally, there's a temp sensor in that one. So really quickly, why the temp sensing is so important. Number one, it'll be a little bit more obvious when we get into the app. You can place sensors in different rooms, and the Fabaro app is broken down by room. So even I should say rooms that may not have a thermostat in them, that maybe have a door window sensor or a motion sensor. One of those devices can be defined as the primary temperature sensing device in that room, and you'll see in your app, you'll see the current temperature for every room listed in the list. So we can do that without having to put an actual thermostat in. That's number one. Number two, it is absolutely important that the flood sensor has a temperature sensor in it. And the reason for that is, for folks like us up here in the Northeast, we get winters that are just cold enough that we tend to see freeze-ups a lot in houses. So what happens up here is house freezes because the furnace goes off for some reason, pipes freeze, and then when the pipes thaw, they're burst and we have a flood in the house. Well, if we can we can detect that water and say, oh, you've got a problem, you have a big water mess in your house. But wouldn't it be nice if we could back up time on that a little bit and prevent that problem? Well, with the temp sensor, in a lot of situations, we can. So by sticking this flood sensor, let's say in the basement by the water heater, which is a really common area for it, we can also write a rule that says if that flood sensor sees a temperature below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, let me know about it, and maybe we can preempt the freeze up and solve that problem altogether. So it's nice that we've got those temp sensors and everything. I saw a couple of chats that I can maybe speak to while we're at it. Do we support wired switches and sensors? Absolutely. We'll talk about that one in a minute. Range. Yeah, so one question about range was, how much is the range? Your typical indoor range on a Z-Wave device is something like 30 feet. But Z-Wave is a mesh. As you probably know, we can add more devices, so we can kind of cover some more of that too. Z-Wave controllers. This is where I would go back to the comment that I made about that European design where you have controllers that are a little different than you may be used to. So the first one is called the button, and it's one we have right here. We got a couple more of them on top of the display. The button comes in like 6 or 7 different colors, and it responds to a single tap, 2 taps, all the way up through 5 taps, as well as press and hold. So those are 6 different functions that you can assign to this one device. Couple different things about that. The first thing that you might say is, well, I'm used to putting a touchscreen in the wall or a scene controller in the wall, and everything has a label on it, so the customer knows how to get to each function because I have a label on it. How do we do that with this? Well, that's kind of the trade-off. If you're really into that minimalistic, that modern design where we don't want all those devices on our walls and want smaller inputs, the trade-off is, yeah, we can get you a ton of functionality out of this one little button, but you're going to have to remember what one press does and what three presses does and that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the way that works. With all the different colors too, you can say the red button does this, the blue button does that. So that's kind of an option. In addition, on the bottom, there's a little ring, and every one comes with two different mounting options. One is a ring of double-face tape, so you can stick it somewhere. You see these get stuck under tables and countertops sometimes. And then they also come with a plastic ring that has screw holes in it, so you could actually screw the device somewhere, like maybe on a wall, and then you push it in and twist, and the button will then mount to that base that you put on. The next one is the swipe, and this is a really cool device. And I would say these two devices, when they first came out, I would be honest and say we're probably as confused as everybody else to say, what do you really do with this thing? But the more you spend time with it and the more you start to live with it and learn how it works, it's actually really cool. The swipe is pretty inexpensive, way less expensive than most touchscreens we see. It takes like a 5x7 picture that you can actually put right in it. So it's not a touchscreen, it's not a display, it's a picture frame really. But it's got a sensor in the back that can detect up, down, swipe left, swipe right, and then circle to the right and circle to the left, which we kind of refer to as like the wax on, wax off gestures. And it can detect them right in front of it, as well as through like 2 inches of a hard surface like marble. So there's a lot of things we can do with this. So I have ours set up right now. If we swipe up in front of it, you'll see all the lights turn on in my demo case. And if I swipe down in front of it, all the lights go off in the demo case. If you look at the Z-Wave lock over here, I have it set so if I swipe one way, it locks. You'll see that go in a second. That just locked. If I swipe the other way, it'll unlock. So I'm not going to sit here and advocate that locking and unlocking in front of the swipe is maybe a good application. We do it for demo purposes. But those inputs, those different swipe gestures can be set to anything on the system. They can trigger scenes, lights, shades, anything you want. They can trigger just a basic push notification if you wanted to. So we've got that functionality. And again, one of the coolest features with this is you mount that under like a hard countertop. One of the coolest applications we ever heard for this was kitchen island. So somebody takes one and sticks it under the kitchen island. And then when people are there, maybe you're making cookies with the kids or whatever the case is, and the music is on, you hear a phone ring or the front door, the doorbell rings, you can swipe down a few times with dirty hands and turn the audio down without ever actually touching anything. So really cool. We've also seen people put this in like a collage with other actual pictures to get some more functionality out of it. So it's a neat product. Last one we'll talk about on this slide is the one they call the key fob. That's actually the one you saw in your video. If I can speak to the videos really quick, if you look at Fabaro's YouTube channel, you'll see the videos up there. They're in a number of different languages, but there's an English one for pretty much everything. And it's also tremendously helpful for you in your own marketing. They do such a good job on those videos. It's really neat to show people how the products work. So the key fob is the newest in the series of device on your screen there. We have 6 buttons on it. Each one is a different shape. We have like a triangle, a square, an X, that sort of thing. And again, each one can be assigned to a different function. So lights on, lights off, lock a door, disarm sensors, that sort of stuff. We can do anything we want with these buttons. Additionally, you can have like a combination of button presses to do one thing. And then finally, because some people like to use these to maybe unlock their front door when they get home, or maybe have the sensors stop watching for activity, Fabaro decided that security was important. So one feature you can do on this is if you enable the PIN code, we call it a PIN code, the button will work once you enter your PIN. Your PIN might be square, square, triangle, plus, whatever your 4-digit, so to speak, PIN is. You program that in there. Once you put it in, it unlocks. You can now use the remote as long as you're touching it. And then after a few seconds of inactivity, it goes to locked again. That way, if you lose your keys or this remote is sitting around somewhere and somebody knows that square unlocks your door, if they don't have the PIN, the key fob doesn't go into operational mode and it just doesn't do anything. Actuators, these would be our output devices. So some of these are the micro modules I was talking about earlier, the dimmer 2, the single switch 2, and the double switch 2. Those are the devices that go in the wall behind switches. And again, we don't honestly see a whole lot of use for those because people want, maybe a Leviton Z-Wave switch, a Jasco Z-Wave switch, something like that is a lot more common here. But these things are fantastic for like fixture modules. If you've got maybe an outside light that never had a switch on it, you can put something in it. There's a lot of ways to use these. The first one, though, is the RGBW controller, and we have a little more information on that in our next slide, but those have become super popular, the color-changing LED strip lights, and we can control those from the system and do a whole lot of different functions with them. And the last one there is the wall plug. This is a plug-in Z-Wave lamp module. It's dimming. We have a version with USB charging and one without USB charging, and there's a lot we can do with that product, too, but just to note that it's available. Next one is the RGBW controller. I said we have a little more info on that one. So here's a wiring diagram of how it works, but really quick on this, just so you kind of get the gist of it. Those LED color changing tape lights typically come in 12 volt DC or 24 volt DC. The RGBW controller can handle either. Whatever input you put into it is what it sends out, and it's fine with that. You've got your 5 wires, which is basically a common positive, and then a white, a red, a blue, and a green. So it's really, as you might assume, they're changing the intensity of the different colors to make one color. So that's kind of how that one works. The screenshot that you see there is how users can change the color of it manually. Additionally, we can create color scenes on it. So one thing we love to do is say something like, if there's water detected in any of the flood sensors in the house, rather than maybe having alarms go off and beeping and having it be really intense, we can say take all the RGBW color changing lights and have them alternate between maybe blue and red. So blue and white. So go back and forth, kind of indicate water. You'd also get a push notification, but it's a softer approach to notifications. I see a chat question there. How is the swipe powered? I should have mentioned that. You have 2 options there. It comes with a USB plug-in, so you can charge it by a USB brick, or alternatively, it'll take 4 AA batteries. Couple comments on that. If you use the batteries, it's really nice because you can set it on the tabletop, but it has to go into sleep mode to conserve the batteries. So you have to swipe once in front of it first to wake it up, and then whatever gesture you want. So it's like an extra step to use it. Whereas when you plug it in by USB, it's always on. It's always ready to go. So good question on that one. I see it was already answered. All right, next one. Some Z-Wave 2, some Home Center 2 Z-Wave capabilities. We want to take a minute and talk to you about that. As I said earlier, this external antenna for improved range. It really does work. Built-in network healing, and there's an option to heal specific devices. So one thing that happens with Z-Wave networks, depending on what level of Z-Wave you're using and how different things work, it is possible that as you start to add devices, the more devices you add, the more robust and reliable that network will become. The issue, however, is if you install, say, 50 devices, the 50th device knows about everybody before it, and it knows how to communicate through all those devices to range, extend, and to hop and everything else. The first device, however, doesn't know about 2 through 50. So one thing that we like to recommend is go into the settings on the Home Center 2 when you're done installing and hit that button that says Network Heal. That's the Home Center 2's way to go out there and say, look at every device and see who can talk to who, what's a good path around one if it happens to be down for some reason. And it'll do that automatically for you once you put into that network heal mode. In addition, if there's one specific device that's giving you issues, you can actually just say, I have one device that I want to heal. You can pick it out of the list and have it heal that one. Mode options, that's the include mode options, what we refer to there. You can include in just kind of general mode. You can include in network-wide inclusion, which means take the devices that are already installed and let me enroll Z-Wave devices through them if they're further away. So that's a nice option. And then there's one called security mode. Quick note is that there's a checkbox that says include device in security mode. You have to do that on locks because locks are the one device that really require the Z-Wave encrypted security. So if you don't, the inclusion doesn't go well. But in a recent firmware version, a little bit further down the list than we show on this screenshot here, you'll actually see a lock inclusion mode, which does that all automatically for you. Really quick, let's have a quick discussion about Z-Wave today in something like the Home Center from Fabaro and Z-Wave from years past, we'll say. If your experience with Z-Wave begins and ends with Z-Wave devices that are on a VRCOP on something like an Omni and using the USB stick and the VR installer tool, I would say that that's not a fair assessment of how Z-Wave functions and installs today. The VRCOP is quite an aged device at this point in terms of how it manages the network and how it works with the network, as is the USB stick for installing. And we've come a long way since then. What I mean by that is today, when you start a Z-Wave network with something like a Fabaro Home Center and you install Leviton light switches, Fabaro sensors, maybe whatever brand of thermostat you like to use, the network is much more robust. The primary controller being your Home Center device here does a much better job of network management. So we find that you don't have some of the issues that you used to have. What do we mean by that? We used to hear of issues on that COP of, everything was fine for a couple of weeks and a device just disappeared off the network. We've heard of that. Maybe something didn't go well and you had to uninclude all your devices and re-include them again. We've heard of that one. So there are some specific issues out there that make the COP a little bit of a frustrating experience from the installer side. We do not have those experiences with your modern controllers with the home centers. That also goes for the Alula panel that Steve's going to show you. The newer Z-Wave host devices or primary controllers, we find much more installer friendly and much more robust. Device types. Well, for lighting, we support all the different lighting devices. Scenes are supported, so you'll see devices come on together. Sensors we have, which would be like your door window sensor, your motion sensor. And a really cool point about this is that the sensors can be armed, so they only provide notifications when users want those notifications. So to take a step back and explain what we mean by that, so the Vivaro system is not really a security system, and I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that it is. It doesn't report to a central station. We don't have that sort of functionality. What we've noticed over the years is feedback from our customers. They say, my end users, my homeowners, are starting to push back on monitoring fees. They don't want to necessarily have a police call. They don't want to be called when the system is breached. They just want to get a text message or a push notification, and they'll deal with the issue on their own. That's what this is built for. So if you want to do security type functionality on Vivaro, go ahead and use the Z-Wave sensors. And they can be either individually or as groups, what we call armed or disarmed. When they're disarmed, if somebody opens and closes the front door, walks in front of the motion, whatever the case is, you can set it up so that you get no notifications. It's just like a security system that's disarmed, doesn't bother you. You can say that, however, when they are armed, and then somebody opens the door or walks in front of a motion sensor, then you do want to get your notifications. So it feels kind of like a security system. You can have PIN codes on it to arm and disarm it, so nobody can disarm it without you knowing. So it has that security system feel. Just know that it's not meant to be monitored. It doesn't have that functionality. So that's really the difference there. We support thermostats and, of course, locks. The cool thing with locks is you can control users. You can say what users can control the locks in a setup called hotel mode. This is what Vivaro calls it. In hotel mode, you can say what users on the system have access to what devices. And we can also then see what user is accessing what devices and do some programming based on that. And then finally, all devices provide data back to the room overview pane, which is what you see on your screen there. I'll show you that on the app in a second. But the cool thing here is Vivaro is meant to be broken down into rooms. And when you do that, if you have a room, say a kitchen with 6 different lighting loads on it, if one light is turned on, you'll have an icon in the room that shows lights are on, and you know it. To kind of elaborate on that a bit, I would assume that with the people we have on the webinar today, there's probably at least a handful who are familiar with going back as far as Lightly or Compose, and I can see we have a ton of people here that are familiar with the HLC from Leviton in those days. So one thing that everybody liked about those two systems, one thing they had in common, was that rooms-based architecture, meaning because you put maybe 6 devices and a room controller in a certain room on that HLC system, they would automatically work together as a room. Well, one thing that Vivaro has done is they've taken that sort of an architecture and applied it to this Z-Wave lighting kind of functionality. So just like in HLC where we would have that room controller, you could walk to the front door as you're leaving, and if you saw, button number 3 was lit up, you knew that was a kid's bedroom and somebody left the light on. So you just hit that button number 3 and the lights go off. Exact same thing in Vivaro, and the cool thing is there's no special programming to do that. Just by the virtue of you saying I've got a bedroom and I put maybe 2 lighting loads in it, the Vivaro is automatically now watching the status of those lighting loads, and we get two-way feedback from our Leviton Z-Wave devices, for example. So now, if that device is left on, and you go and look at your app and you see the little lighting icon, you know there was a light left on in that room, and you can then toggle it back off. So that's one that we find really nice. Z-Wave range testing. This kind of goes back to the question we had about Z-Wave range. Like I said, about 30 feet, way more than that in open air, and that's something you want to watch out for. When you read a spec from a manufacturer that says Z-Wave range of like 100 feet, you can be pretty confident that that range is tested in a grass field somewhere. It's open air. Indoors with walls as obstacles and things like that, we typically see something like 30 feet. However, in the flood and the motion sensor, and I believe in the new door window sensor from Vivaro as well, we've got range testing built in. So as you know with Z-Wave, it's a mesh network. Every device is a transmitter, it's a receiver, and it can be a repeater if it needs to be, and that the network sets that up automatically for you. So a question we've always got since Z-Wave was new is, how do I know what kind of range this device is in? Is it talking directly to the controller without repeating? Is it repeating through another device? Am I on the fringe? How does that work? So there's a button sequence you press on the flood sensor, for example, and it puts it in range test mode. So now what it does is it's constantly communicating back to the home center too. So when you're in direct range of the home center, you're going to see a green LED on it. If you walk a little further away, and now it starts hopping through another device, an intermediate device, you'll see an amber light. So you know you're still good to go. There's nothing wrong with that, just that you can be aware that it is hopping through some other device. If you get further yet and you see a red LED flash back at you, that means I've now lost communication altogether. So you know you have to either get a little closer or put in a couple other devices to strengthen that mesh. Plugins. I kind of explained already how they're maintained by Fabaro. One note I would make on that is Fabaro is kind of striving to get more of a marketplace for those, where you're going to see some user-contributed plugins. We're, I think, getting pretty close to that, so you'll always be able to see the difference between Fabaro-maintained plugins and user-maintained plugins, so you can kind of make your own decisions on those. But the couple that we have experience with that we can tell you about is that, real quick question, can the Z-Wave sensors be hardwired for power to eliminate the battery management? On the flood sensor, yes, it's got a 12-volt input. You can put any kind of 12-volt wall wart on it and power it. On the other ones, they're battery only. It's a good question. So some of the plugins that we're familiar with would be like the Speako cameras. So you can plug in Speako cameras to the system and bring them into the app, and then you can, again, using that room's architecture on the app, you'll see the camera for that room whenever you go into that room. You can even set up rules that say, if the system is in the armed mode, meaning we're watching the sensors, and somebody opens the front door, let's get a picture from the front door camera and attach it to that push notification. So you get a notification that says front door was breached, and here's a picture of who's there. So really cool with the cameras. Audio, the Rust Sound integration, that works with the current suite of Rust Sound products that are out. And what's really cool there is you get an interface that comes up inside your Fabaro app, and it's not like the Fabaro app is calling up the Rust Sound app. It's actually 100% within Fabaro, but it looks really similar to the Rust Sound app. You're going to have access to your favorites. You've got your metadata feedback from the system, right down to album art. So whatever album art you would see on the Rust Sound app, that's going to come right into Fabaro for you. Complete two-way feedback on it. So if somebody's controlling that zone from somewhere else, if they turn the volume up 3 notches, the instant that they turn that up, you'll see that reflected on the other side of the Fabaro app. So it's all right in there. And the really cool thing about this plugin is that you get 2 layers of control here. One is I can go into the app, bring up that Rust Sound zone within my Fabaro room that I'm in, and control it in a live scenario, like make changes to it as I'm going. The other thing we can do now is kind of as I described with the Fabaro swipe, where you swipe up and down to the volume control. Now every function that Rust Sound system has is available to you through programming. So we can do things like, when I hit a certain button on my Fabaro key fob, mute all the zones. Hit a different button, turn all the zones on to a certain source or whatever you want to do. But better yet, we can mix automation programming and scenes with audio scenes. So we can have one button that's called party mode in the kitchen, and it dims the lights into maybe that 80% neighborhood or whatever you want for that party mode. Closes the blinds if you want to do that. Sets the heat to a certain temperature, and also turns a given source on to a given volume level in that zone. So now we've got our entire system is all integrated into one button press, and it sells well and it really shows well too. So it's a neat feature. Notifications. Again, I keep referring to Fabaro as like the modern approach to automation. This is another way that they really shine doing that. We have basic email notifications. When this happens, send this email to this person. That's a really easy one. We also have the push notifications. So by having the Fabaro app on the user's phone, you can send notifications in that push fashion. They come in a lot faster, and they're in your notification area on the phone where you're used to. It's a really neat way to get your notifications. Quick way to elaborate on that really quick. When you add the Fabaro app to a user's phone, that'll show up in the administrator section where the installer sets up the Fabaro system, and you'll see Richie's iPhone, Steve's iPhone, Barry's iPhone, whatever the case is, and it knows that those users are out there. So now when you set up notifications in your rules, you can say when this happens, send this notification to this person or to these people. So it gives you a lot of granularity and your ability to set up where those notifications go. I show the Apple Watch there. That is a really cool one. That's another one that shows really well when you demo the system. You get the water sensor wet, and I think maybe half a second after you touch water to that sensor, your Apple Watch goes off and you've got a notification that says there's water in the basement. It's a really neat notification feature. Geofencing or geolocation, kind of whatever you want to refer to it as. This is a feature that Fabaro's had for a long time and has actually been improved upon over recent firmware releases. So not too unlike other systems, what Fabaro can do is give you that ability to say, maybe Mr. Homeowner is leaving work. When we get past this bubble, on the geofence, then set the home to his mode. Or when people leave the home, do this or that to change some modes of the house in or turn lights off. The couple things I would elaborate on with the geolocation from a Fabaro standpoint is they give you the ability to say how often should the hub query the location of a device per device. So if you're constantly asking for location, it's rough on the battery. You'll notice that in battery life. You can say, I'll ask for my geolocation every 2 minutes or every 5 minutes, and it's drastically less abuse on the battery in that device, for one thing. The other thing we can do is, because we have multiple users, if every user in the house has a device, we can watch their location and use some variables through programming to say, rather than just saying, when a device leaves the geofence, turn off all the lights. Well, that's a glorious idea, but the problem is if that's set up for my phone and I leave and it turns off all the lights in the house, there may be 3 other people in that house who are now in the dark. So a way around that is to say, well, if we know that every resident of this house has the app on their smartphone and they use it, you can say when all the users leave the geofence, then turn off all the lights. This is another layer of intelligence there to make some of those features work a little bit better. Gateway connections we'll talk about quickly, and we'll kind of move on here. With Z-Wave, there are some limits to how big of a job we would do and how many devices we do. Typically, and this varies on system, it varies based on people's opinions too, I think. We don't like to see Z-Wave used beyond like 150 devices on a network and beyond that 5,000 to 7,000 square foot range, depending on the construction of the building, whether it's more of a masonry or more of a wood structure and what's in the walls. And like I said, that varies, and it depends for a number of reasons. One thing that gets into an issue with number of devices is the primary, or the hub in this case, will pull every device on that network periodically. So the more devices that are on there, the more of that given amount of bandwidth that we have ends up getting used for polling. So one thing that Fabaro's done that really kind of alleviates some of this and really lets you do some really cool stuff and some big applications is this gateway connection idea. So in a gateway scenario, you've always got to have at least one home center 2 as your main gateway. So we've got a big house with like an east wing and a west wing. So we'll put the home center 2 somewhat central to the east wing, and it sits there. Then we have a home center light that we put on the west wing, on the other side, and it sits there. They're both on the same network, and they're on the same IP network, but they are unique Z-Wave networks. So it's almost like having Z-Wave in my house and having Z-Wave in my neighbor's house. Maybe they're close enough that they can talk, but one doesn't know anything about the other because they're separate networks. So by doing this in one structure now, we can say all the devices on this side are a member of that network, and all the devices on this side are a member of the other network. But through the Home Center 2 and through the software that Fabaro's got in there, all those devices come together into one interface. So I can have a room here and a room there, but they all show up in one list. I can even have, if there's like a common area that maybe blends between the two, I can have a scene in Fabaro that includes devices from both networks, from both of those gateways, and it acts as one scene. You'd never know that it's on 2 different ones. So the couple applications is good for, again, is number 1, really big structures. We can cover them pretty well. Number 2, from time to time, dealers present us with some challenges like, I've got a 5,000 square foot main house, and a couple hundred feet away, there's like a 1,200 square foot guest house on the same property. And the homeowner or the property owner would kind of like to have one system to control the whole thing. It's absolutely doable. Let's just make sure there's a network connection, maybe a fiber underground or a wireless backhaul between those 2 buildings. We can put a Home Center 2 in the main building, Home Center Light in the remote building, and you'll see it separated on the app. It'll show, main house, guest house. You can control them as if they're one system. So it's really cool stuff to do with the gateways. AV system control. There's a couple ways to do this. We really like the integration with the Harmony remotes. Fabaro's done a great job on that. And Harmony's done a great job of really addressing the professional AV installer in the last couple of years. So to elaborate on that a bit, anybody who had experience with Harmony prior to, say, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, the Harmony was, number 1, a very retail product that Harmony came in and said, let's make this available to pros. And even if you're okay with that, if you had 10 customers out there with Harmony remotes, and one of them called you and said, hey, I changed my Toshiba DVD player to a Denon Blu-ray player, and my buttons don't work anymore, can you update it for me? You can do that, but you had to have their login information for their Harmony account to make that change. Fast forward to now, there's 2 major changes to address those things. Number 1, you have Harmony Pro, which has been out for a while now. A little bit better aesthetics, a little nicer packaging, not available at all online. So when you give a part number or even a SKU number, it is very well policed that it's not available online. little bit better margins on it, better warranty, and better technical support from Harmony, from Logitech if you need it. So that's one change. The other thing is you can now sign up for a Harmony Pro dealer account, and then all of your user accounts are nested under your account. So when Mrs. Smith calls and says, yeah, I just changed that Blu-ray player out, you log into your account, find Mrs. Smith, make that change. She goes to the remote, the change pops down to it, and everything is good. It's really easy. The other big change that's been made is the Harmonies used to be just the remote. Everything was in the remote. Well, now we have the Harmony base station. So your IR control, even your IP control on the Harmony Pro anyway, is done from the base station. So that enables Harmony to have this cloud account now. So the Harmony users already can have a Harmony app on their phone that does the same thing the remote does. Obviously, it's nice to have a hard button remote there, but if somebody wants to control the system from an app, they can. What that gives us the ability to do now is Fabaro could write a plugin to the Harmony to say any activity that's available on the Harmony is now available on the Fabaro. So activities in Harmony, for folks who aren't familiar with it, is maybe watch DirecTV. So Harmony says if somebody hits the watch DirecTV button, we know we have to put the TV on and an HDMI 1 input. We have to put the Blu-ray, the Denon receiver in HDMI 1 input and the TV mode. We have to turn on the Blu-ray or the DirecTV receiver. It does all that for you. Well, now in Fabaro, once you link the two together, I have those activities available to me. So again, we talk about these combined scenes or routines that do multiple things for you. I can have a movie mode. So I push one button, maybe on my Fabaro button or my key fob or on the app, however you want to do it. And we say, turn the lights in the home theater room down to 20%, close all the shades, and put the system in watch DirecTV mode. It all happens at once. So that's kind of I would say, the easy way to get a really solid AV integration on Fabaro. The other way is we can use like a global cache IP to IR device, and then we can go in there and get those IR codes for our physical devices, and we can build what's called a virtual device in Fabaro. And in this case, you're really designing the way the app's going to look. You're copying buttons onto the screen, you name the buttons, and then you associate codes with their IR or serial or Ethernet codes to the buttons and kind of go from there. So it's doable. It's maybe a little more flexible that way, but the Harmony integration is quick, easy, and looks really good on the Fabaro. Real quick on the interface, I'll talk to a couple of these screenshots, then we'll give you a couple-minute demo of the system, and then we'll move on and try not to take too much of your time here today. So we have apps available for iPhone, for iPad, and for Android. So the nice thing here is whether it's a smartphone that's an Android or an iOS, or a tablet that's an Android or an iOS, the app looks the same. So you have that consistent user interface. That's an important thing to some people because some homeowners do kind of mix and match their Android and their iOS, and they might want a similar user experience on those devices. So we've got that as an option. If you look across the bottom, that's going to be your tablet-sized interface. It's the larger one. You can see on the bottom right, that's an example of how the camera integration works. The camera just shows up there. The middle one on the bottom is the energy interface. We didn't really talk about that, but the easiest way to integrate energy information into your Fabaro system is there's a home energy meter that you can actually clamp onto the main power input to the house, onto the two phases, and it just monitors the power all the time. And then you can get historical graphs, you can get real-time information about how much power you're using. As energy costs go up, we find there's more and more interest from homeowners on knowing more about their energy usage and what they can do about it. So it's one of those things where we can't necessarily always help on the what can we do about it, but we can at least say, hey, look, you're using twice as much energy today as you did yesterday. What's going on? Is it hotter and the air conditioning's running? Is there something wrong somewhere? You might want to check it out. So you've got that detail, that information. The bottom left image is the home screen on the tablet interface. And I think the nicest thing about that is there are those 7 positions across the bottom there where you see some light sliders and some other things. And that lets the users actually put devices or rooms right there. So I could put the kitchen as a room on my home screen. And if any light is on in the kitchen, that'll show as on, and I can turn it on or off, do the whole thing. I could put a lock there. I could put a motion sensor there. I could do my virtual security arm and disarm. That can be there. So that's separate by user in the app. And the important thing there is, if I have the app and somebody else in the house has the app, those favorite devices are specific to the user. So if I change mine, it doesn't change anybody else's. So at this point, we're going to switch over to screen share. I'm going to grab my my iOS device, and we're going to show you real quick exactly how that works. Just getting set up, setting up for the screen mirroring here. Yes, I see the chat. It says iPhone and iPod. It was supposed to say iPad. You're exactly right. Yeah, we're working on the mirroring here, folks. There we go. We're good. You don't have it? Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. The screen mirroring is one of those things. It's not easy, but it's at least it's a good way for us to show you the app. So here's the home screen of the Fabaro app. You can see you can get in devices by their device type or by room. So like if we go into lighting, now it's going to say, well, we can go to the kitchen, which, so you know, the kitchen is the only room we have set up, which is why it's the only one you see. And we've got our devices there, so we can turn dimmers on and off. And then we can also go in. The RGBW is one of the cool ones. It's kind of hard to see on the camera, but on the very top of our display here, there's a strip of RGBW tape lights. If you see some colors changing, that's where it'll be. So you know how that works. If you hit the RGBW on here, now you'll have the ability to grab different colors. Never fails you get a phone call when you're doing the demo. So you can grab your different colors, and the colors on the top will actually change. So there's more of a blue. There's more of a red. You can see how we can do that. We can adjust the brightness of it. So the RGBW is a really, really cool device that we don't see from a lot of other people. It's just kind of a nice one to have. So back to the home screen, I can go to climate, and it'll show me all my temp sensors. Again, my 3 sensors are all in the kitchen, so I see them all showing up right here. The reason they're in Celsius is we set this up in a rush the other day, and apparently we didn't change it to Fahrenheit. So just know the Fahrenheit is in there. We just we omitted to do that part. But the part that I like the best is if we go into rooms. Let's say we go into kitchen. Actually, I'm going to back up one step. If we look at rooms, right now, you'll see that I have that one little, like a light-colored dot at the top right of the kitchen. And that's because there's a device on right now. So if I were to go in there and turn off my RGBW, let me go back. Once that goes off and updates, you'll see, and there it goes. That goes out now. So now we know that all the lights are off. We can go into the kitchen. Here's all our devices. So if we open the door, you'll see the door icon go open. Then we close it, it'll go closed. As I move in front of the motion sensor, you'll see that. If there were to be water, you'd see it. And we've got our door lock. Just to show you how fast, the question came up in a previous section here on response time. I'm going to lock the door lock and keep an eye on my app, and you'll see the red. So there, that just changed to red. So I'm going to go manually change this to unlocked and watch the door lock go from red to green. There it is. So very quick response time. And in our experience, whether you've got 10 devices or 100 devices on there, you get a similarly quick response time on the system. It's very, very fast. So we can go into anything and kind of and check our device status. You have some shortcuts across the bottom. The intercom can be integrated here. So here's kind of a really brief overview. But the part that I just kind of wanted to stress and kind of drive home is that this is a really modern looking interface. Users generally really react well to it. And the other thing is, I'm showing you the phone version of it today. But if you were to look at the tablet version, one really nice thing is there's an automatic audit trail that shows up there. So any device that you want to see, you can go into another tab for that device and see every time that device was controlled and who controlled it. So when it was turned on, who turned it on, when it was turned off, who turned it off, all that kind of stuff. So some really nice features there. Okay, so we're going to hop back to the presentation part here, just so you can see that for a moment. At this point, we open it up for a couple minutes for questions on the Fabaro system. Guys, just so you know, we do couple-hour webinars, and we do day-long classes on Fabaro. This is really just breaking the surface here on it. So if you want more information, we can get you in the right direction for some of that. But there's a lot more to the system. We just kind of wanted to give you a quick overview on it. So, yeah. Yeah, so in regards to that, I kind of to speak to that in a little more specificity. Today's meant to be an overview on all three systems. As we gauge everybody's interest in the systems, like we can already promise you that we'll have a much longer, in-depth technical training on ELK in a webinar. That'll be coming in the next few weeks. I see us doing the same thing on the Hibaro system and most likely on the Alula as well. So in the next couple weeks, you'll see a lot more from us on more in-depth training on these, but we kind of just want to give you more of a demo feel for it today. Okay, so we're going to go ahead now. We're going to mute the camera and the mic for a second. We're going to hand the equipment over to Steve, and we'll give you a quick overview on Alula, and then we'll kind of wrap up and take some more questions.
Today, consumers have more offerings for home and business security than ever before. However, many of these offerings bypass the professional security dealer altogether, promising a simple installation experience by delivering an unsupported and often vulnerable product for the consumer. At Alula, we know that the best source for professional security is in your hands. That is why we have created a total solution that combines industry-trusted hardware with a simple platform. An engaging experience offering what consumers have been demanding: intuitive, reliable, innovative, thoughtful. The technology in our product is designed to keep up with the changing world and blend into your customer's lifestyle while simplifying your business. From basic security solutions to the most advanced, we've got you covered. Now you have an advantage over others and can attract customers that desire professional security but are interested in a modern solution that they can install themselves or have easily installed by you, the professional. Grow your business with Alula, modernizing and simplifying your business. It's what you deserve and what people expect.
Hi, this is Stephen Ho. I'm going to be one is able to hear me. Okay, we're back now. All right, thank you for checking back in. All right, so I'm Steve Ho. I'm going to cover the Alula section. Just so you know, this may be last. This is not least of your options, so it's still worthwhile something for you to take a listen to. Alula is mostly a security system, and you know, Omni deals. We have a lot of Omni deals who used to use the Omni strictly for security, and they used it because it was the easiest system to program. So I wanted to make sure that you know, everyone had a chance to see this as an opportunity. Now, the Alula is a simple system program because it's programmed by an app. And I'm not getting keyboard control. It's programmed by an app, so you don't need to bring a computer in there. There are options for actually allowing us to do programming from a computer, and I'll go over the programming later on. But it's a modern approach to interactive security. You have your security features as well as your Z-Wave integration. You got lights, locks, thermostats, and all the other Z-Wave devices available. There's video integration. You can use it for new installation, whether wireless or wired, and I'll show you the takeover modules later on. Great wireless range and great battery life. Very low dealer barriers to entry. You don't have to worry about investing in a lot of heavy equipment or expensive equipment, and it's not a huge expense to get involved with Alula. Okay, so I'm going to cover a demo from the user perspective
of the system. I'll go over all the hardware and the camera options, Z-Wave options. The thing we like most about Lula is that from beginning to end, it's all under one manufacturer, one service. Lula provides the equipment, security equipment. It provides the cameras. It provides the door camera. It provides the app, and it provides the service, which gets you the app and the forwarding to your central station. So it's kind of an all-in-one system. We're going to do a demo from a user perspective. Hopefully, my app is going to do what I want it to do. Okay, so what you see here on the screen is the Lula app. It's opened up into my favorites page. Or technically. There we go. Okay, so it's opened into my favorites page. So basically, you can see here, I have a camera up here, I have a door contact, and I have a light. Now I can control my lights directly from here, turning on the light behind me. I'm not on camera, I don't think so. You may see the light go on or off behind me. I can go into various sections of it. So I have my security section. Right now my Z-Wave motion is detector is on. Arm the system for stay. And I can disarm the system. Now in this particular case, because I have this set in my phone, I don't need to put in a code, but I can also set this up. It would require a code for arming and disarming. I have my door and windows, and this little button off to the side here, I can bypass my zones directly from the app, allowing me to move quickly prior to arming. You have your status, your smoke detectors, your motion detectors. I can also jump into my lighting control. So I have a Jasco lights and a couple of Z-Wave bulbs here. I can just run through the list and turn them on very quickly. And as you can see, the response is very fast. I have lock control. I have my thermostats and other Z-Wave devices I can control. Now, Lula also makes the cameras. So here I have on the screen a camera that's downstairs in the training room, and I also have the doorbell camera, which is right here in front of me. So this will work through the app. So this way, if somebody were to come to the front door, they can ring the doorbell. It'll pop up on my app and allow me to speak with them, two-way conversation. And if I have the Z-Wave door lock, actually allow me to open it up. You have scene control, so I can actually have active scenes on the Alula, allowing me to do things. For example, if I want to be able to open up my front door, it'll turn on one of my lights. So I'm going to move on to the rest of the demonstration. But as you can see, it's a very nice, simple to use app, very intuitive. Stop mirroring. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the hardware. Here in the wall, I have the Alula main control panel. Over here, I have the Alula touchscreen. This communicates via Wi-Fi. I have the Alula keypad, which is communicates via Bluetooth back to the controller. And then I have a pin pad, which communicates using the Z-Wave communication. In the main controller, we have slots for different devices. The controller does come with a hardwired connection right away, so you can plug it in and use internet as your communication services without having to add any other cards if you chose to do so. You have a Wi-Fi card, an LTE card for cellular communication, add a Z-Wave card, and then you also have a Z-Wave card with translator. Now, what that purpose of that is for is to allow you to do a takeover. So if you were to go into a house that already has existing security system with wireless sensors, let's say that they've got 20, 30 wireless sensors, rather than having to sell them all new sensors, you can actually reuse the sensors that are already there. You don't have to, you just take out the old security panel, install the Alula panel, and then you would then learn those sensors into the Alula panel based on whatever translator you have, whatever service you have the translator set to. I just went over the touch screen, the keypads, just a quick display of those things. And then I'm going to talk about translator module. In addition to the translator card, you have a hardwired translator, which will allow you to do hardwired zones. Where that would be used for would be a case where you had a house that was already a wired security system. You wanted to add the Alula because you want to add additional wireless sensors and added the Z-Wave capabilities. You would just tie all the hardwired zones into the hardwired translators, and then that would communicate wirelessly back to the Alula controller. And I also lost control of the keyboard. All right. Okay. So okay. So Alula makes their own cameras. As I mentioned earlier, we have the video doorbell. We also have an indoor cube camera, an indoor camera that'll do 360 degrees, so you have pan and tilt, and then you have an outdoor bullet. Those, again, as I showed you on the app, they all come up on the app. They learn very simply into the system. Actually, adding a camera to the system is simply as scanning a barcode. And here's where I'll mention it. Okay, basically, you go into the app as a master user. You scan the QR code on the camera, and then basically you name it, and you can go into alarmdealer.com and manage actually what users have access to cameras. So you may have people who are using your property, business or home, and you want some people to have access to cameras and some people that don't. So you can go into the dealer settings at alarmdealer.com and actually set who's allowed to it. As I mentioned earlier about it, you have the Z-Wave card. The traditional Z-Wave card will just give you Z-Wave. Then you have the one with the translator that actually also allow you to do translations of the other products. Now, Richie mentioned Z-Wave system before, and again, we're gonna repeat that. The Z-Wave of today is much better than the Z-Wave from even 3 years ago. The series of chips that we're using have better range, better communication. You're not going to run into any of the issues that you'd run into several years ago. The system. Okay, we just had to switch phones, and okay, there's more of a phone issue than a system issue. All right, as you can see, it's loading up all the different configurations in the panel as far as zones and what cards are installed in there, and basically getting all the information out of the panel to allow the technician to be able to then manage whatever he's there, adding devices, changing devices, adding more Z-Wave. As you can see for the different settings in there, I can go to the panel options and look at what's available in the panel options, set my exit delays, my entry delays, my siren timeouts. We can go into the chime options, enable quick arm and enable force arm, auto stay arming. You have the translator protocol, which if we were doing translations, we would be able to then choose which service I'm translating from, DSC, our communicator interface options. How are we communicating back to Central Station or to alarmdealer.com? And then the different features of key fob. So that's what the installer app looks like. I'm going to switch back out into my presentation. Okay. Okay, so a quick overview of the app. Just getting into the app, just press the Bluetooth button on the Alula, and then you would get into the app, be able to upload the configuration, and then all the different screens we were just talking about. Adding a device is simply scanning a barcode. I didn't go into that portion a moment before, but if I wanted to add a zone, I would just scan the barcode of a device. It would then learn it into the system. This is an advantage because you can actually set up a system in the office and then hand it to installer and have him just go out and hang it. He won't even have to do any programming on site at all if you didn't need him to. Adding more devices. AlarmDealer.com would be your service provider. That's a company that's going to be, when the signal leaves your panel, it's going to go to AlarmDealer.com, and then you're going to decide what's going to happen with it. So this way you can configure your central station information, your customer contact information. You can have AlarmDealer.com, contact the customer with emails, voice messages, or text messages, push notifications. So you can actually do a self-monitor system. The difference here is that because AlarmDealer.com is providing this service, you will be paying a fee for the actual service to AlarmDealer.com, whether it's a IP communication or cellular communication. In addition to that, you can also forward this to your central station. So you have your central station setup information here. And you can also do some remote programming through alarmdealer.com. If you needed to add zones, change, add devices, you can actually do that through the system, including scanning something in advance and then sending it to your customer to add to the system. You can adjust your delay times, adding devices, creating a new zone, configure the buttons from the fob. So basically, it's a very low entry point to get into doing Alula systems. You would sign up on alula.net to become a new dealer. That will give you access to alarmdealer.com. And Worthington here, we have all of the equipment. Any questions that anyone want to ask about?
All right, guys, really quick. We just want to wrap it up. I think Barry's asking answering a few questions on Alula. I want to point out a couple of things and speak to a couple questions that I noticed come up repeatedly on the chat. Number one, will this content be available later? Absolutely. We recorded this whole thing, and we're going to post it on YouTube with a link to you guys this afternoon. So it'll take us a couple hours to get that done, for it to upload and be edited and all that. But you'll get a follow-up email from us this afternoon that'll have that link in it. One of the other questions was, all these questions, will they be answered that maybe we missed, we didn't have time to get to on the chat? Absolutely. We're going to grab that chat transcript. We're going to answer those, and that'll be in our follow-up email as well. Another thing we're going to have in there for you guys from all three systems today, Elk, Fabaro, and Alula, we were able to work with those vendors and get some pretty aggressive promo pricing for you guys, which is available through the end of next week. So you get about a week here to take advantage of that. And we'd love to see you grab maybe a demo system or a couple parts of one of the systems that you think is good for you. You can get it in your own hands. One of the other questions we saw come up a few times was, I know some people maybe missed the beginning. I know we went over some really important information about Omni and where it stands there. That will also be in our follow-up. So anything that you missed, we're going to try to make sure you get that, whether it's directly in the email or in the recording of the webinar. So you'll have all that information. Additionally, guys, we understand this is a big change. As I said in the beginning, if you guys are anything like us, Omni's been an important part of your business for a long time, and I know that is the case for most of you. We recognize a lot of names that we saw in here today. These are folks we've known for a long time and we've worked with on Omnis for a long time. So we know this is a sensitive subject and at the same time a really, really important one. So we're going to continue to bring you guys information as quickly as we can and as best we can to keep you on track with what's going on here and help you figure out what the path is forward. To that end, if you have any more questions, feel free to give us a call. Everybody in our technical sales department is fully aware of what we're doing here. They know what the status is of everything, and we're all kind of up to speed on ways to get back to you guys and kind of help you chart that course forward and how we go here. With that, any questions either on the Omni stuff in general, on Elk, on Fabaro, on Alula? We'll keep it open for another couple minutes here if anybody wants to type anything in, and we'll answer those as they come up. Otherwise, we'll get them to you in the email. I see some typing, so we'll hang on. Absolutely, guys. Thank you for your time. We know we don't usually do a webinar as long as this, but there was just a lot of content to cover, and like we said, it's an important topic, so we appreciate you guys hanging on with us so long here. We're happy to do this, and we're glad you could spend some time with us. The question, can Fibaro automate control like Omni? Can you elaborate on it a little bit? We'll get that one answered for you. More questions to come, no problem. Big systems. If the big system comment pertains to the Fibaro, so yeah, I mean, with a single Fibaro system, if you're within like 5,000 square feet and 150 Z-Wave devices, you're good. If you go beyond that, we're going to recommend that you start to kind of engage that remote gateway feature, kind of break it up into 2 or 3 systems and bring it all together with the Home Center 2. Great question. You can do multiple Home Center 2s. From an economic standpoint, what most people do is put one Home Center 2 in and then multiple Home Center lights, but you could do additional Home Center 2s. What the requirement is there is the device that does the coordinating of all the other gateways has to be a Home Center 2. From there, it's okay to do either. Good question. So great question. The Fibaro units are hardwired Ethernet only, and that is a decision that Fibaro made from a reliability standpoint. They like to see them hardwired. Good question. PDF of the presentation, we can absolutely do that. We'll make that available. So I hope to have all that wrapped up for you for this afternoon. We will definitely have an email with at the very least the follow-up information, the promo pricing, and I think the video, because that just has to get downloaded from the webinar and then posted up to YouTube. We'll get you guys a link to it. The chat answers and the PDF may take a little bit longer, but we'll do our best to get it to you by the end of the day. If not, it'll be early tomorrow. Who should we contact with questions pertaining to Omni migration? Guys, honestly, yeah, absolutely. So as you guys can see, those of us who did the different sections are going to be kind of your go-tos on those sections. However, I will say the other guys in the tech sales department are as up to speed on this pretty much as the rest of us are. So anybody, when you call in here, anybody that you get when you call in here can help you, but feel free to ask for any of us with more specific questions. That's a good question. Using current Omni 2 Pro with... Okay, using Fibaro with Elk or Fibaro with Omni, at the moment, that's not really going to be possible. It's really meant to be kind of separate. Thanks, guys. All right, I think it's winding down. Again, can't thank you enough for taking the time with us. We really appreciate it. As we said, any questions, feel free to give us a call, whether it's one of the 3 of us or anybody that answers can help you. We're here to help you through this change. And it's important to us that we help you guys stay with it and stay successful with it. So we're going to do our part to do that for you guys. All right, thanks, guys. Have a good day.